ultimate tournament of everything.
Welcome to the Ultimate Tournament of Everything, a bracket-style show where we compare everything on Wikipedia 2 by 2 until only 9 remain.
That's right, and we do so by writing an infinite amount of individual letters to Santa, asking him in each one for the thing we want most, one of everything, but individually, so all the letters are kept separate. Waking up on Christmas morning, what will we find underneath our tree? Well, that will be the one moving on to the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
As we all know, Santa is a very frugal man, so he doesn't give us everything off the list, just the things which he would deem most essential to our happiness. And those are the things I think we'll be talking about today.
Yep, that'll be yet to be seen. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a box full of moths and or our very own small town in Iran. But Rob, why don't you tell them what we'll actually be doing?
We will instead be divining the tea leaves that is Wikipedia using a random Wikipedia link generator to give us 18 competitors, which we will compare across 9 rounds to figure out which of those things we like the best, usually is moths and small towns in Iran.
It's arbitrary, it's exciting, and it's time for round one.
In round 1, we have record Irkutsk against the 1968 Chicago White Sox season.
Yes, we do. And just a quick look at these two different competitors. Looks like we've got some competitors, two different sports teams. We've got one who's a bandy club. Don't know what that is. We will soon find out. And the 1968 Chicago White Sox season, we'll have to see if it went well. Looks like it was their 68th season in the major leagues. That is a mighty fine number. Let's dig in.
Record Irkutsk is a bandy club from Irkutsk, Russia, founded in 1986. The band colors are black and blue. Now, as our American listeners probably don't know, bandy is a form of hockey. Considered it has a common background with ice hockey, but is not ice hockey. They are on skates. There is a stick, but it looks like they use a ball, and the ice is bigger, considerably larger than an ice hockey rink. Interesting.
Well, you know what they say, everything's bigger in Russia. Looks like this team was a pretty big deal as well as the Rekford Irkutsk.
It's a lot of Ks.
It's tough to say. They won the Bandy World Cup Women in 2012. Pretty cool little symbol here. Looks like a large, well, it looks like a track, but you can imagine within it is probably contained the frigid hardness of ice.
Yeah, it looks like there are 9 players on the pitch at a time. 8, 11? 11. Goalkeeper, no stick. The net looks huge. It kind of looks like a soccer goal, football, I guess, for all of our other worldly listeners. So it seems like a really interesting thing, but we're not comparing the game. We're comparing just this one team in Russia against the 1968 Chicago White Sox season, which was the team's 68th season in the major leagues and its 69th season overall.
Very nice. Now, they were playing baseball. You still have a ball, you still have a stick, but only one stick at a time. They finished with a record of 67 and 95, which was good enough for 8th place in the American League. They finished 36 games behind the first place Detroit Tigers.
Gotta love the Detroit Tigers winning so many games then that they'd never have to win any more since.
Heyo.
That regular season, the White Sox played 74 games. They played more than that. 74 of them were decided by a 1-run margin, which was an all-time American League record. In those games, the team had a record of 30 and 44. 44 one-run losses were also an all-time MLB record. So they were so close to victory, but really pretty mediocre.
Yeah, they just couldn't get it done, and that was good enough to put them at the second to the bottom in the standings in the American League that year, only besting the Washington Senators by, looks like, 2 games. Yeah, big competitive season. On their opening day lineup, they started off with pitcher Joel Horlin on the mound. They had Tommy McGraw at first base, Tim Cullen on second, and in between him and the third baseman, you had the shortstop Luis Aparicio.
They had some notable transactions. They drafted Rich McKinney in the first round. Wayne Causey was traded to the California Angels for Woody Held. Don McMahon was traded to the Detroit Tigers for Dennis Rybant, and Tim Cullen was traded to the Washington Senators for Ron Hansen.
Other notable stats looking at everybody loves a slugger. And you had a few with some good double digit home run totals. You had looks like we got Cisco Carlos had 13 of those. We had Jack Fisher and Bobby Pretty knocking 14 out of the park. But the home run king of the team that was not all that great, it seems, was Mr. Joe Horlin with 16 dingers.
Wow, that is a lot. Now, the man with the highest batting percentage that for that year was Leon Wagner, who was both a right fielder and a left fielder, who batted .284.
It's got to be tough to play both of them. And I'm sure they're running into the center fielder all the time as he's trying to cover that much ground. They probably should have just had somebody on the other side so he didn't have to play double duty.
It's probably why they lost so often, but the question is, will they lose again today?
And I think that they will. For this is a sport that I didn't know existed. It's combining a bunch of sports. It's on ice. They got skates, and the looks like they were victorious. The Bandy World Cup women in 2012, they took home the gold or whatever parallel medal they have in this sport. I think I'm going to throw mine down for this very difficult to pronounce record Irkutsk.
Now, generally, as a rule, I don't like many things from Russia, but I think I can make an exception. Just this once.
Indeed. To Russia with love, we're sending you to round two.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Excellent. I wonder if they have to still drop, do like the puck drop they do in hockey. If you drop a ball, though, it's like to bounce.
Yeah, I really hope it's a jump ball like in basketball. They just like throw it up and they whack at it with their sticks. That's what I hope.
Yeah. I'm just going to imagine all sorts of amazing things that sport could be. Speaking of imagining amazing things that could be, let's get ourselves into round two.
It's time for round two.
In round two, we have Whole New Mess against Orangeberg, South Carolina.
Aha, a whole new mess of good music, it looks like. A fifth studio album by American singer-songwriter Angel Olsen facing off against a town in South Carolina, also known as the Garden City. So we've got a mess for something that appears to be pretty tidy. Let's see which tack will be successful in this round.
Whole New Mess is the fifth studio album by Angel Olsen, released August 28th, 2020 on Jaguar. Recorded by Olsen and engineer Michael Harris in a converted church. The album features tracks from her 2019 album All Mirrors, arranged in a more intimate style. And I really like when artists do this. They release something and then later on they release new cuts of it. Gavin DeGraw had a great one. He released Chariot and then Chariot Stripped, which had some absolute fantastic revisionings of his previous work. And I'm hoping that this follows that trend.
Yeah, so many people's favorite Nirvana is that Nirvana Unplugged. That's a great one. Acoustic. Let's see what type of instruments they used in this mess that was. Well, I guess not a mess. It sounds like it was pretty nice. Recorded over 10 days in October of 2018 with engineers Michael Harris and Nicholas Wilbur. The pair worked in isolation in Anacortes, Washington, notable as the hometown of independent musician Phil Elverum. And recorded in, as you said, a converted Catholic church. Olsen would use the church's corridors to create a natural echo effect upon her vocals.
That sounds nice. Now, the album was recorded prior to her studio album All Mirrors, which featured many of the same compositions in a different form. And she's quoted as saying, "When we made this, I was still processing a lot of the songs, so for me it's harder to listen to this record than it is for me to listen to All Mirrors. When I recorded All Mirrors, other people had their hands in the pot, which separated me from the songs. I could get into them in a distant way. On Whole New Mess, I'm feeling every feeling that they evoke."
And it seems as though those may have been some difficult feelings to deal with, especially, so in their more stripped down raw form. This album was written following the collapse of a romantic relationship, with Olsen noting, quote, "I was really depressed. I had no idea whether the songs were good. They were just about my life. I could have recorded them at home and kept them as demos, but I knew Michael Harris was someone that I could be depressed in front of, who would help me to explore in different ways. It was such an emotional process."
Emotional and successful. The album was critically acclaimed upon its release and currently sits at a score of 83 out of 100 on Metacritic.
That's a good score. That's a solid B, I'd say.
Well, and I think for albums, a solid B is usually the best we can ask for. Very rarely do people get 100, and I wonder if I had to give a score to our competitor, Orangeberg, South Carolina, where would it be? Now, Orangeburg, also known as Garden City, is the principal city and the county seat of Orangeburg County, South Carolina. Population of 13,964 as of the 2010 census, but unfortunately declining to 12,704 10 years later. The city is located 37 miles southeast of Columbia on the North Fork of the Edisto River.
It's also home to two historically black institutions of higher education. We've got Clayfin, I think I'm reading that right. Clayfin University, a liberal arts college, and South Carolina State University, which is a public institution. This town is still popping, it's still growing, but it does have its roots going all the way back to the 18th century.
European settlement in this area started in 1704 when George Sterling set up a post here for the fur trade with Native Americans. To encourage settlement, the General Assembly of the Province of South Carolina in 1730 organized the area as a township, naming it Orangeburg for William IV, the Prince of Orange, the son-in-law of King George II of Great Britain.
Well, how about that? Then in the year 1735, a colony of 200 Swiss, German, and Dutch immigrants formed a community near the banks of the North Edisto River. This site was quite attractive because of the fertile land and the abundance of wildlife. The river provided an all-important transportation waterway to the port of Charleston, a fine city on the Atlantic coast for the area's agricultural and lumber products, as well as for shipping goods upriver.
Well, it seems like it's got some things going on. Now, as of today in the 21st century, the city created the Orangeburg County Community of Character Initiative, a collaborative effort in community development by the Downtown Orangeburg Revitalization Association, also known as DORA. Probably
Ah,
Dora the Explorer.
Well, this sounds like quite the place to explore. It is got a whole total area of 8.3 square miles, so not too much to explore. And the land is 0.12% water. So that is a difficult statement to wrap your head around.
A lot of water and apparently very warm. The record low temperature for any month, 2 degrees. I think in Wisconsin we just call that like a Thursday in December.
Yeah, pretty much. It's got a humid subtropical climate, and it certainly looks like it. Humid is probably the key word there.
Yeah, humid. Humid, as the southeast tends to be. Colleges and universities, we have the aforementioned two universities and the Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College. There are 4 public schools, 2 charter schools, 2 private schools, and a library.
So there is a lot to do, explore, learn, and grow from here in the town of Orangeburg, South Carolina. But there's also a lot to explore and grow from here in our other competitor, A Whole New Mess, the studio album. So we're going to have to pick a winner here. Rob, how are you feeling?
I think I'm feeling like a whole new mess, Mike.
You're looking like it too. You're lucky that this is a podcast and they can't see you. I'd say get a comb, but I'm also going to say, hey, let's move on a whole new mess to a whole new round. That round being round 2.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Congratulations. You can make a whole new album all about this experience.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've done it once, you can do it again. Why not just use the same songs? They seem to be really good. The album cover here, which we didn't mention, she looks like she has a headache, and I'm sure that it's well deserved. So I hope that we're able to, with this victory, take a little bit off her heart, off her mind, and we're off to round 3.
It's time for round 3.
In round 3, we have Robin Le Messier. It's probably French. The R's probably don't matter. Against the 1994 Armenian Premier League.
Who was our first competitor there? Time out. I have different people.
Robin Le Messier.
That's not on the list here.
In 3? Yeah, he is.
Oh,
He
I
totally
jumped to 4.
is.
My bad.
Let's try round 3 again.
Okay.
We're going to leave it in. We're going to leave it in. Robin Mark Le Messier Hallely, born March 22nd, 1953, passed away December 22nd, 2021, was a British guitarist known for his long collaborations with Rod Stewart and Johnny Halliday, as well as for the wide-ranging nature of his musical performance, including membership of such bands as the Wombles.
Ah, the Wombles, yes. This Mr. Le Mesurier was the son of 2 of Britain's best-loved comedy actors. We had Hattie Jacques and Jean Le Mesurier. Le Mesurier gained a strong following during and after his appearance on Living TV's reality show Rehab in 2009, in which he opened up about his battle with alcoholism.
He was educated at Sussex House School, where he described himself as being completely out of place, and then Westminster City Grammar School. This was also an unhappy experience for him, and he'd be teased about his famous mother. And as a teenager, he was offered a place at the Royal College of Music, but turned it down. Now I just got to take a sidebar for a moment. Kids will tease you about literally anything. Hey man, you have famous parents and I bet a great life. That must be terrible. Ha ha.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the worst thing to be teased about. Could have been teased about, hey, let me just take a look at you, Rob. I can come up with any number of things, but I won't do that because we've got to get moving on. Speaking of moving, this guy seemed to be moved by music. He was a big fan of the Faces, as well as guitar stars such as Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, and Jeff Beck. His first official band was called The Rain, whose first single was written by the Yardbirds member Keith Reef and Jimmy McCarty. The band lasted until 1973, when he became the guitarist of the Wombles, which is Mike Batt's novelty pop band that played his music for the British children's TV show, The Wombles.
So they're the original Wiggles, I guess.
I think it sounds very much like that. Yeah, probably a lot of fun.
I wonder if the Wiggles are a tribute band to the Wombles.
But it's interesting because weren't those guys British too?
Yes, you see, I think it's an homage.
Ah, an homage to a hot potato that was rock music. But speaking of a hot potato, let's bounce on over to our other competitor, the 1994 Armenian Premier League.
We're not just going to bounce. We're going to get in our big red car, Mike. We are going to get in our big red car and drive right over to the 1994 Armenian Premier League.
Let's do so. Beep, beep, as they say.
It is literally just a list of the league table, the results, and the top goal scorers, of which Arzin Avitsayan is the top winner there with 39 goals, playing for Homentman Yerevan.
Yeah, and he was 14 ahead of second place with 25. That was Henrik Berberyan,
who played for Kotak, I think.
So, yeah, this is pretty exciting. League table, who won here? We had Shirak. Looks like they played 28 games, won 24 of them. That is not too shabby. A total of 52 points. And they qualified for the UEFA Cup preliminary round.
Not only did they win 24, they lost none. They drew 4, had 0 losses, putting them at 52 points and the top of the league with a goal differential of 64, which is actually 25 fewer than Homenenten Yerevan, who came in second that year because they had 4 losses, 1 draw, 23 wins. So close, but those losses will really matter in the scoring.
Yeah, and speaking of losses, one interesting thing about this league, it seems, is that if you are bad enough, the league loses you, and you get relegated to first league, and they probably bring up the top 4 from that as well. One of the teams here actually withdrew. Looks like they never played any games, thus not winning any games nor scoring any goals.
I would really love to see us use something like that here in the U.S., where the worst team in the NFL loses their spot and plays with like the SEC, and the best team in the SEC plays in the NFL the next year.
Well, pretty soon we're going to have, the XFL and the AFL, and they're going to be vying to, assert their status. I mean, we had the AFC turn into, they joined the NFC. Now we've got the NFL. What letters will we see preceding our competitions in the future? One cannot know. But we've got, I think that's pretty exciting. But I also think that the Wombles sound like a blast.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one, and I do, because that's the nature of the show, I gotta go with Robin Lemessier. Mesurier? I don't actually know how to pronounce his name. The guy who played for the Wombles. I think he gets my vote.
Yeah, definitely fun. And you know what? He got teased a lot because he had such a wonderful life and everything was so good for him. And so I think we should just, keep on giving him a wonderful life and move him on with honors to the next round of.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
I don't want to belittle him or make bullying, I guess, funny, but I'm sure it was tough being a kid and you had rich parents. I'm sure that's difficult. I'm just saying there are other things that are probably maybe equally or more difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure there were also things that probably would have been more fun to make fun of him about as well. I mean, the jokes about that, oh, your parents are so successful. They're not funny. Sometimes kids say things that are really terrible, but they're also funny. I mean, don't bully, but sometimes it is kind of funny.
Yeah, if you're joking with your friends and you have like a really clever singer and everyone's taking that in good fun, that's fine. If you're making a joke about someone and they're not in on it, don't do that.
Yeah, you should only be mean to the people that you love.
Okay, that's not what I said. But why don't we move on to round 4?
Let's get it behind us.
My round 4 is ready.
In round 4, we're going to talk about Alexandra Joner and Martin Herrenknecht.
All right, yeah, we have a singer and a dancer versus someone who had a different set of skills, an engineer and a businessman. Although perhaps they could have met at a karaoke bar and had a real good time singing the classics. Let's see if that ever took place.
Alexandra Arena Acevedo Joner, born March 25th, 1990, professionally known as Alexandra Joner, is a Norwegian singer and dancer. She is the daughter of Norwegian musician and composer Sverre Indris Joner and Cuban mother Barbara Joner. She additionally is the niece of actor Johannes Joner and cousin of actors Knut Joner and Christopher Joner.
What a talented family. Her debut single was called Sunrise, released in Norway on the 4th of May in 2012 via production team Element/Mindcode Records and Universal Music Norway. The song reached number 1 on the sales chart for Platicum Paniet and peaked at a number 8 on the Norwegian singles chart. The song features vocals from Madcon, and in 2007, Joner was a contestant on the Norwegian version of So You Think You Can Dance called Dansefeber.
I have to imagine, considering her Wikipedia lists her as singer and dancer, that she can. She can, in fact, dance, and it looks like even sing. She has
the same time.
Yeah, now that is a double threat, and she's also famous, so triple threat, and she's probably pretty quadruple threat. When will the threats stop, Mike? When will they stop?
Tough to say. It doesn't seem like. I mean, if you are one of her competitors, it seems as though she was probably pretty threatening. The song reached triple platinum status. So I think that means it sold a whole lot of copies. And it features, as we said, vocals from Madcon, which is a Norwegian dance and hip hop duo.
Look at that. Now,
Yeah.
she's got other singles as well. Next to You, Tap Dance, Cinderella, Bottoms Up, Kilimanjaro, Chico, Like Beyonce, and Hasta La Vista.
Well, I think we should say hasta la vista to her for just a moment as we pop over to our other competitor, Martin Herrenknecht.
Now, of course, we're talking about the German engineer and businessman. He founded an engineering company in 1975, which became the Herrenknecht AG in 1977. Today, his company makes large, heavy, boring machines. Sorry, tunnel boring machines.
And they do a lot of that. They have 4,955 employees as of 2015. That is a lot of boring people. Herrenknecht is the son of an upholsterer from someplace in Germany, and he graduated from Max Planck Gymnasium, studying at the University of Constance and earning an engineering degree in 1964.
In 2010, his company drilled the largest tunnel in the world, and he's the member of a Christian Democratic Union. He received the Werner von Siemens ring in 2015, and he's caused some controversy, notably with his Stuttgart 21 development project. The Green politician Winfried Herrmann accused him of having too close a relationship with Lothar Spath, who is a German politician.
Yep. Friends doing things for friends. If you're not making fun of them, you're probably making money with them. And either way, it's a good time. So does seem this Martin Herrenknecht, but not unlike our other competitor, Alexandra Joner. So here we are. We've got to choose a victor, and this one's gonna be tough.
I don't think it's going to be that tough. I think I'm going to use one of these tunnel boring machines and tunnel right back over to our competitor and give her the victory.
Absolutely, singing and dancing at the same time, her way in victorious fashion to round two.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Can you imagine that guy at parties? What do? I make boring machines. Well, yeah, I could have gathered that. Can you explain? They know they bore people. Yeah, we get that, but no, really, what is it?
Now, they probably just don't want to hear about it. But what I want to hear is that song like Beyonce. I'm sure that it's awesome. And you know what? Both of them, they put out singles. They're both single ladies.
And it probably sounds just like this. That song like Beyonce probably sounds just like...
Round 5.
It's got to be close. In round 5, we're going to talk about Nikolay Demirev against the complete book of humanoids.
Fantastic. We have a humanoid versus a reference book, which will tell you all about fictional humanoids. This is going to be exciting. Let's dive right on in.
Nikolay Demirev is, of course, an American bridge player with wins at the North American Bridge Championships, the North American Pairs, the Lebhar IMP Pairs, the Nail Life Master Open Pairs, and the Werner Open Pairs.
They say you can't win them all, and this guy was no different, but he was still up there in the runnings. He was the runner-up in the North American Bridge Championships, perhaps twice, the North American Pairs in 2010, and the Von Zedwitz Life Masters Pair in 2009.
We could talk about him more, but that is just a bridge too far. So instead, we're going to talk about the complete book of humanoids, the source book for the second edition of the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Fantasy Adventure role-playing game.
Now, the book's primary goal was to provide guidelines for several races to be used as player characters, which were normally considered to be previously only monsters. It dealt with, in this book, we have Irakakra, Algahi, Beastman, I don't know what that is, but you had also Bugbear, Bullywog, Centaur, Fremlin, Giantkin of a different variety, Knoll, Goblins, Hobgoblins, Kobolds, Minotaurs, half ogres and ogres, half orcs. You had be a pixie. This is just give you a way to pretend that you are anything that you could ever possibly want to be until the next edition.
Well, as with anything in Dungeons & Dragons, you can be whatever you want to be. Now, Mike Lampman reviewed this complete book of humanoids and said that overall, the Humanoid Handbook is a good investment if you're a D&D player or GM looking to spice up your campaign by playing something a little out of the ordinary. It's well written and edited, as most of the TSR products are, and is laid out nicely.
Yeah, it does. It expands the number of race options by 20. So you don't just have to be, a wizard or an elf. You can be almost anything you want, including a goblin, but a goblin can't be a wizard. It says so right here. There were difficulties involved in playing some of these non standard races, citing having a member of a typically evil race functioning in a lawful good society, or how very tall characters might navigate areas with low ceilings. However, he felt that the adventurous players would appreciate the book and closed his review by saying, "Who could pass up the chance to play a pixie?"
Apparently, nobody. Now, they even included aquatic races such as crabmen or merfolk, and this really shook up the game, but they also carefully balanced it with great advantages and then also substantial disadvantages, mostly in the form of prejudice and superstition from the more common races. Player characters based on the creatures presented would face some sort of prejudices as well as special physical limitations when trying to interact with surface dwellers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're walking down the street and you see a dragonborn or something like that, someone, a half dragon, half person, I don't know if that's in this book or not, or even a goblin, like you're going to give him a second look. And that goblin might be a good guy, but you never can tell from a distance. And that's why we all need to get to know one another. Make a friend. It doesn't look quite like you. This Nikolay Demirev, though, he seems to, is Bridge a cooperative game? Or is that one that you just play, just your hand?
I think it must be because he played in a lot of pairs. Maybe it's either or.
Hmm. Now I'm thinking you're right. I'm seeing a bunch of pairs here. He must have made a friend, and it might be handy to play, cards with a wizard or a pixie, if you will, because they'd have magical advantages, but you wouldn't be able to do so without the complete book of humanoids. And I think that's why I'm choosing it as my selection to move on to the next round.
Well, I have to agree, and now I'm thinking about a Dungeons and Dragons campaign where you are a half ogre, half wizard man in a bridge tournament, and you have to win to earn back the money for your RV.
That does sound pretty good. I'm pretty much a half ogre, half humanoid, anyways. So I think that maybe I'll have to reference this book when it inevitably shows up in the next round of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
D&D. It's pretend for adults, guys. Don't make fun of it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's not just for kids anymore. It's serious business. Check it out. See if you get a nat 20. We're going to see if we get a nat 20 as we move on to round 6.
Making a turn around the last curve. He comes around the last side, and there you have it. There is your winner, round 6.
In round 6, we have Persicula Hilly against Maulalusha cliffortioides.
Indeed, we do. We have a species of sea snail versus a plant in the myrtle family, endemic to the southwest of Western Australia.
Now, of course, the sea snail is a marine gastropod mollusk in the family Cystaceidae, and it was named by M. Smith in 1950. If you've ever seen a sea snail, it's like a snail in the sea, and it generally says ahoy a lot.
Yes, it's that was good. That was good fun. I'd love to see how it looks. It probably looks like any number of other snails, but snails can look super weird. They're also generally relatively small, slow-moving marine gastropod mollusks. Some of their shells are awesome, but I don't know if this is one of those.
Well, if the snail had to race this plant, it would definitely win because plants are usually stationary. Now, of course, our competitor on the other end is in the myrtle family, endemic to the southwest of Western Australia. It is a small, prickly shrub, similar to Melaleuca podocarpa, but with fewer stamens in the flowers.
Indeed. It grows to a height of about 1.6 meters. That's about 5 feet, still a little bit taller than Rob. Its branchlets are densely covered with soft, fine hairs, and the leaves are arranged alternately 4 to 9 millimeters long, 1.6 to 2.5 millimeters wide, and with a narrow oval to egg shaped tapering to a sharp point, and have many prominent oil glands.
I never think of plants having glands, but I guess this one does. Now, the plant flowers profusely, but the white or cream-colored flowers occur singly within the foliage of the shrub and are sweetly scented. The petals are about 2.2 to 2.8 millimeters long and fall off as the flower opens. The stamens are in 5 bundles around the flower. Remember, that's how you figure out what plant it is. And the main flowering season is in September, and the fruit which follow are woody capsules.
Yeah, there's a nice little picture here. It looks like a brush growing in, dry areas, but it is relatively tall. With it's mostly green, but those little flowering points seem to be white. It looks very nice, kind of decorated. A little bit of flocking, it seems, and yeah, it just, I mean, it still does kind of look like just, a plant. If you're thinking of a plant, you're probably not too far off.
Yeah, it's green, it flowers, it's got leaves on it. It grows in sandy and rocky slopes and on undulating plains. It is considered to be not threatened, so there's apparently plenty of them to go around. But now the question, of course, snail or plant?
Snail or plant? I'm thinking
Snail or
snail.
plant? Snail?
I'm
Snail?
thinking snail. I mean, it lives under the sea. This plant wouldn't do so well underneath there. We know that this plant isn't threatened. I don't know. I don't have any reason to think that this snail is threatened, but it's probably threatened on a regular basis by snail-eating things also of the sea. And so I think I'd like to protect it and move it securely on to round 2.
Well, I think we're going to say ahoy hoy to this marine gastropod in round 2 of our show. I concur with you.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Yeah, we're just hoping that this, we want to just expose it to a little bit more and try and help this sea snail come out of its shell a little bit.
Now let's see if round 7 has another snail in store for us.
Round 7. Round 7. Round 7. Round 7.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't. In round 7, we have Remfry, the surname, against Anna Christina Kalin.
Okay. We've got a name. And what's the name? We're going to find out, as we always do, versus another singer. We definitely had a musically gifted lineup here so far. I can't wait to see if which one of these competitors is going to sing to us.
Remfry is a surname. Notable people with it include Charlotte Remfry, the Spanish writer, David Remfry, the British painter and curator, and Keith Remfry, the British judoka.
Do you know what that is?
I think he's a master at judo.
Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely neat. And I'm sure there's any number of other people who have this last name as well. However, they're not listed in this article, and so I can't tell you anything else about them. But if these people got the name, they probably got it from somebody who, at least half of which, had that name as well.
That's generally how names work. They're generally given to us, hence called our given names. Now, Anna Christina Kalin was also given hers on December 6th of 1953 in Umeå. She unfortunately passed away in August of 2004 at Gothenburg at the age of 50 due to illness.
She was a Swedish singer and actor, and she appeared in many plays at the Backa Theater, among them Aniara, and we've got also Spurket Pa Centerville, in addition to Eliza and Girl Power.
Sounds like she was great at what she did, but it sounds like the people on the other side, the Remfries, were also good at what they did. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a Wikipedia article. If you have a life where you didn't do anything notable, you probably don't get a page.
Yeah, but if we're talking about the name, and I mean, there's, as we've discussed, there's more than just them, but they're the only notable ones. It doesn't seem what's everybody else doing.
Yeah, it sounds like nothing.
Yeah, and
Way
it's
to carry the rem-free weight, guys.
yeah, we've got this one guy who's judo. Someone's a painter and a curator. So for other painters and a Spanish writer. But I don't know if that's. I'm thinking that she was a multi-threat. She acting, singing, appeared in many plays, as we said. We named some of them, and probably taken too soon.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? Stop. The other competitors already lost, okay? I think we have to give it to Anna Christina Kalin.
I think we do. Hey, you're taking center stage here in the Ultimate Tournament of Everything, and moving on to round 2 of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
very nice.
That lady
Encore.
probably could act.
Yeah, she. It sounds like it. And anybody that knows probably would be screaming at their podcast device right now, saying, "Yes, she's wonderful." But you know what else is wonderful? Round 8.
I say, would you by chance have any round 8?
Round 8!
In round 8, we have Josiah Hardy against Soleil Davou.
A British merchant and colonial administrator facing off against a Nigerian footballer. This is going to be very exciting. Let's see which one is going to be able to kick and administrate the other one out of the competition.
Josiah Hardy, born 1715, passed away 1790, was colonial governor of New Jersey between 1761 and 1763, succeeded in the post by William Franklin, the son of Benjamin Franklin. Hardy was later appointed as consul at Cadiz.
So this was a British merchant who was here in the States, or the colonies, as they would say. He came from a naval family, probably not of mermen, though. His father was Vice Admiral Sir Charles Hardy, and one of his brothers, Charles Hardy, no sir there, became an admiral.
Well, good on him. He was a merchant emphasizing trade between Great Britain and North America, and in 1761, as we said, governor of New Jersey. He had married a lady named Harriet, daughter of Sir Thomas de Eighth, and they had 5 daughters: Harriet, Elizabeth Sophia, Priscilla, Louisa, and Charlotte. Their 4th daughter married the naval officer Lieutenant John Cook.
And it looks like that Cook was killed while commanding the HMS Bellerophon at the Battle of Trafalgar on the 21st of October, 1805. Now, this must have been a tough time for anybody to be trying to, in the 1761, just prior to the lead up of the Revolution, must have been a tough time doing business between the colonies and the country across the pond, if you will. He must have had some skill and ability to do so.
Yeah, I got to imagine during wartime, it's like, hey, trade with us, don't trade with that other person. And the guy would just be like, yeah, sure, I won't. I'll be right back. I got to take my boat over to New Jersey, though.
As so many have. But speaking of just, doing things that are tough and every game's a war, let's jump over to our other competitor, Sele Davo, the Nigerian football midfielder who plays for Sao Martinho.
He played on the Portuguese second tier of the Alvarense, and it looks like he has appeared in many games, still active. He is 5'5". He was born in Nigeria, and he is currently 26.
Got a lot of good footy ahead of him, as they might say over there. They call it football over there, not soccer. So that's interesting. Looks like he scored 4 goals in the 2015 to 16 season in 32 appearances. Pretty good. That was his second highest scoring season. Only behind the 2019 to 2020 season, where he played for Montalegre, scoring 5 goals in only 24 appearances.
Now, that is about all we know about Soleil Davou, and that is about all we know about Josiah Hardy. So do we want to go with the footballer with the career ahead of him, or the man from the Jersey Shore?
I think that in this case, we've got to go with the one that was in the situation, which was the time leading up to the Revolutionary War. He is no, he's, I,
I'm trying
I'm
to think
just
of
gonna,
other Jersey Shore names
I'm
as
just
well to
gonna,
pepper in
yeah,
there, and I don't know
I know.
who's the lady.
I think it's Snooki, and I was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
make a
that's it.
snooker,
Okay, yeah.
because it's a British pool thing. But I'm just gonna spare everybody all of that jazz, and I think I'm gonna lay my hammer down for Josiah Hardy heartily.
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Why make more bad jokes when we can instead sprint headlong into round 9?
Ba-doom.
It's about time for round 9.
Round 9.
In round 9, we have the Costa Concordia disaster against Wenzel Schultz.
Ah, yes, we've got a looks like a cruise ship that did not. It was not quite a pleasant 3-hour tour that they went upon versus an individual who was an Austrian actor. Wow, the stage has really been well represented this evening as well. So let's see which one of these will keep themselves in the limelight in this round.
The Costa Concordia, of course, is the cruise ship that ran aground about 10 years ago. On January 13th, 2012, the 8-year-old Costa Cruises vessel, the Costa Concordia, was on the last leg of a cruise around the Mediterranean Sea when she deviated from her planned route. They sailed closer to the island and struck a rock formation on the sea floor. This caused the ship to list and then capsize, landing unevenly on an underwater ledge. Although a 6-hour rescue effort brought most of the passengers ashore, 33 people died, 27 passengers, 5 crew, and later a member of the salvage team.
Now, an investigation focused on the shortcomings in the procedures followed by Costa Concordia's crew and the actions of her captain, Francesco Schettino, who left the ship prematurely, did not go down with her. He left about 300 passengers on board the sinking vessel, most of whom were rescued by helicopter or motorboat in the area. He was found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 16 years in prison. Now, despite receiving its own share of criticism, Costa Cruises and its parent company, Carnival Corporation, did not face criminal charges.
Gotta love that. You have all the rights of a person, but none of the responsibilities. Yay, corporations. Now, the Costa Concordia was declared a constructive total loss by the cruise line's insurer, and her salvage was one of the biggest maritime salvage operations. On the 16th of September 2013, the parbuckle salvage of the ship began, and by the early hours of the 17th, the ship was set upright on her underwater cradle. Then, in July of that next year, the ship was refloated using sponsons, flotation tanks basically, welded to her sides, and towed 200 miles to her home port of Genoa for scrapping, which was then completed 3 years later.
The total cost of this disaster, including victim compensation, refloating, towing, and scrapping, is estimated about $2 billion, more than 3 times the ship's $612 million construction cost, and all of those lives that were lost. Costa Cruises offered compensation to passengers to a limit of looks like 11,000 euro per person to pay for all the damages, including the value of the cruise, and only 1/3 of the survivors took them up on that offer.
It's interesting to me that there's a limit on damages for that stuff because they get to write off the entire amount. So for the cruise line, it's like, that's fine. We can still make plenty of money. You guys, though, you only get $11,000 for your pain and suffering.
Well, and it's good that they learned their lesson because it's not like we've heard any recent stories about Carnival cruise lines doing and being anything other than just a delightful good time. But speaking of a delight, let's jump over to our other competitor, Wenzel Schultz, as we said, Austrian actor in Laibach, Klagenfurt, Graz, and in Vienna. Above all, the Altweiner Volkstheater, who became known especially as brilliant partner of Johann Nestroy in his Possess and Lustspiel.
Now, in many biographies, Maximilian Schultz is mentioned as his father. His father, however, was actor Leopold Schultz, who was possibly a brother or close relative of Maximilian. The error may result from the fact that both had born Tilly as their wife. Had a born Tilly as their wife, a lady named Tilly, I'm assuming.
Schultz was an actor's child whose talent protested early against the forced profession of a merchant. So they wanted him to be a merchant, and he said, "No, my place is on the stage." And he made his debut in 1811 at the age of 24 in his mother's theater troupe in the role of Harlequin in Friedrich Schiller's Turandot, Prinzessin von China, and then appeared predominantly in Laibach and Klagenfurt.
Now, it sounds like he did a lot of acting. He went to Vienna again, so he'd been there several times at the age of 39 to fulfill an engagement at the theater in Der Josefstadt, there we go, where his first role was Trolfadino in Goldoni's The Servant of Two Masters. Now, from May of 1827, he appeared at the theater an der Wein and pleased audiences and critics as Stibberl in Ballieri's Die Burger in Wine.
Yeah, he would go on to team up with another great actor, Mr. Nestroy. And it seemed that from 1832 to 1852, Schultz played at the theater in Der Lopenstad with many great successes of the famous duo. They came about because Nestroy wrote many roles for himself and his partner Schultz. Schultz's outward appearance as a stocky figure, a round, mostly motionless face with nimble, lively eyes, and his mostly phlegmatic temperament, which stood in contrast to Nestroy, mainly contributed to the comic effect of his plays.
He was the straight man, the original straight man in a comedy duo.
There you go.
Probably. Now, this article seems to be written in both present and past tense because I have here listed he has been married twice. So apparently he's out there still marrying people, if the article's to be believed. His first marriage with Antonia Rupp, daughter of a painter, and they had two sons, Edward and Anton, and two daughters, Josephine and Caroline, both of whom started mediocre acting careers. The marriage is said to not have been a happy one, as his wife was a squanderer. 6 years later, after the death of his first wife, he married Teresa Miller for the second time at an advanced age, and the second marriage remained childless. However, an illegitimate child of his is verifiable.
Yeah, so he did things very out in the open, on stage, but he also did things privately. He also has himself, he was also himself differently privately. He was seriously and taciturn and only devoted to tobacco smoking and card games, where he regularly lost, though with great equanimity, although it plunged him into a great financial hardship. Director Carl, a man with two first and/or last names, knew how to cleverly compense Schultz's financial calamities by advances, loans, purchases of his benefit ideas, etc. Only under Nemstroy's direction did Schultz receive a corresponding remuneration.
Now, Schultz passed away at the age of 70 after his short illness, and his funeral was attended by many people. Tens of thousands of Viennese are said to have given him the funeral procession to the old Friedhof in Dornbach. Hundreds of staff followed the coffin. John Nestroy, his friend and partner of many years, traveled, however, not to have attended the funeral since he could not bear the thought of the death. In 1900, Schultz's body was exhumed at the instigation of his granddaughter and buried in Traunkirchen. He's immortalized on the safety curtain of the theater an der Wein next to Nestroy, Raymond, and Mozart's The Magic Flute.
Definitely sounds like a character who played many, many characters. But do you think his stage presence will be greater than that of the Costa Concordia disaster?
Yes.
I agree too. And this Concordia disaster was just that, a disaster, very tragic, not entirely unpredictable, because these boats, They look like a good time, but man, it just seems like there's problematic things going on them. But looks even our other individual, Mr. Schultz, had some problematic elements, though it seems like he brought joy to many people for many years. And I hope that he brings us joy as well when he shows up again to compete in round 2 of
The ultimate tournament of everything.
Well, if you've enjoyed listening about all those actors, maybe even a snail, and plenty of people who play soccer, we can do this again on Thursday.
As a matter of fact, we will in this same type of format. And if you just can't wait until then or till the next one, we have a scouting report, which comes out every single other day of the week, which we take just one look at one competitor outside of the competition and see how we feel that they may fare based on their own qualities when they inevitably do show up in the ultimate tournament of everything. So please join us for all of that, which is all of this, which is
The ultimate tournament of everything.